This video on Aurora storage backup costs is part of the course Amazon Aurora PostgreSQL from A to Z, which is available on Udemy. Check out the details of this course in the description. In this lesson, you will learn how Aurora charges for automatic backups and manual snapshots. I'll walk you through an example backup cost estimation worksheet that will help you in understanding the factors that determines the cost of Aurora backups. I'll also cover the CloudWatch metric related to the backups. This metric can be used for monitoring the cost of backups. The total cost of backup is calculated on per region basis by adding up the cost of automatic backup and manual snapshots. Automatic backup costs depend on the size of the cluster volume and the retention period. 1 day retention of automatic backup is free. So in other words, if a user decides to have a 1 day retention, then in that case, user will not incur any charge for the Aurora continuous backup. Here is a simplified costing formula for a cluster with fixed size over a month. This will become clear in a few minutes. Manual snapshot costs depend on the size of the cluster volume and the duration for which the manual snapshot is kept beyond the retention period. As an example, let's say the retention period for a database cluster is 2 days. So a manual snapshot will start to incur charges after 2 days of creation. The actual backup storage cost is calculated on per day basis with prorated price for both the automatic and manual snapshots. These per day costs are then added up to determine the monthly cost of the backup. The unit for backup cost is GB month, and the cost of backup storage is different in different regions. The pricing details for Aurora are available at this link. You will find the option for checking the backup storage cost, and here is the cost of the backup storage in Ohio region. Let's check what it would cost in some other region. So let's pick up, let's say, Africa, Cape Town, and in the Africa, Cape Town region, this is the cost of backup storage. Suggest that you read through the details of backup storage calculation here, and to give you a better idea on backup cost estimation, I'll walk you through an example cost estimation worksheet, which is available under the Project Root Cost subfolder. Please note that this worksheet is in Microsoft Excel format. This example worksheet has the calculation for automatic and manual snapshots for a cluster that has an automatic backup retention of 2 days, and this cluster is growing at a uniform rate of 1 GB per day. Cluster is in US East 2, so the cost of GB per month is $0.021. The number of days in the month for this calculation is 30. Let's walk through the costing of automatic backup. Let's say the cluster starts with a size of 300 GB on the first day of the month. So here is how the prorated cost on day 1 will be calculated. I'm multiplying the size of the cluster with the cost of the backup storage divided by the number of days in the month. On second day, the size of the cluster will be 301 GB. So the cost will be calculated by multiplying 301 times the cost of backup storage in the region divided by the number of days in the month. So the same formula is applied to the rest of the days in the month to calculate the prorated backup storage cost for automatic backup. To calculate the final monthly cost, I'm multiplying the sum of the prorated cost with the number of days of retention minus 1, as 1 day of retention is free. So this is how I'm getting a cost of $6.60 for this cluster for my automatic backup storage. Now, if I change this to, let's say, 1, automatic backup will be retained for only 1 day. The cost will come out to be 0, as Aurora offers 1 day of free automatic backup storage. But if I change this to, let's say, 30, we'll see a considerable change in the cost of automatic backups. So let me change this back to 2, and let's check out the manual snapshot storage calculation. In this example, a manual snapshot is getting created on a weekly basis. So 4 manual snapshots will be created in the month depicted in this example. This is the monthly cost calculation for the snapshot in week 1 when the size of the cluster is 306 GB and the snapshot will incur charges for the remaining days in the month minus the retention period for the cluster. In week 2, the size of the cluster volume is 313 GB, but since the number of days remaining in the month has gone down, the prorated cost of the manual snapshot in week 2 is lower than the cost of snapshot taken in week 1. Week 3 and week 4 calculation are done in the same way. The total monthly cost of the manual snapshot is determined by adding up the cost of individual snapshots. The total monthly cost for the backups is calculated by adding the cost of automatic backup and manual snapshots. Feel free to change the numbers here to see a change in the total cost. Just keep in mind that this sheet provides rough estimates and not the actual cost. So one thing that is clear from the example worksheet walkthrough is that to control the cost of backups, users must carefully plan the life cycle of the backups as the database cluster volume size cannot be controlled. Here are some general consideration to keep in mind from backup cost perspective. Increasing the retention of the automatic backup will increase the cost. Size of manual snapshot and how long they are retained will also affect the cost. Recall that Aurora gives 1 day of free automatic backup, but if you delete the Aurora database cluster, then any backup that is retained will cost you money depending on its size. And that is the reason why I do not create a final snapshot on deletion of the cluster. Copying of the snapshot will lead to additional cost of the snapshot in the destination region plus one-time cost incurred for the transfer of data between the regions. Keep in mind that it is okay to estimate the cost of backup for building a business case for Aurora, but as a best practice, it is suggested that users monitor the actual cost of backup storage on a continuous basis. And for that, Aurora provides CloudWatch metrics that are calculated independently on per region basis. The CloudWatch metric, backup retention period storage used, holds the amount of storage used for continuous backup at a point in time. The snapshot storage used metric provides information on the storage used for manual snapshots beyond the retention period. The unit for both of these CloudWatch metrics is bytes. The total backup storage build metric is calculated by adding the 2 other metric and subtracting from it the free storage, which is equal to the latest size of the cluster volume. Let me walk you through the CloudWatch metric for my cluster. This green line here is for the volume bytes used metric. When I created my cluster, the cluster volume size was roughly half a gig, and the retention period for the automatic backup was 7 days. This blue line depicts the backup retention period storage used. As you see here, there is a drop in backup retention period storage used, and the reason was that I modified the cluster to have a retention of 2 days instead of 7 days. And after that, I haven't changed the retention period, and that is the reason for this flat line. And you will see that I haven't changed the size of the database as much. If you look at the total backup storage build, the difference between these 2 lines is the amount of free storage, which at this point is roughly 222 MBs. Let's go over the key points from this lesson. Backup cost depends on the cluster volume size and the backup retention period. Backup charges are calculated on per region basis. As a best practice, users should monitor the backup related metric on a continual basis. If there is any change, they should try to understand the reason for the change and make adjustments accordingly.